Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jayo Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Yashodanandana Vrajajana Ranjana Yashodanandana Vrajajana Ranjana Hari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jayo Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Jayo Radha Vrindavan Chandra Radha Vrindavan Chandra Shri Radhe Jaya Gopal Nath Ji Jaya Srinath Ji Jaya Gopal Nath Ji Jaya Srinath Ji Jayo Prahalada Narsinga Jayo Prahalada Narsinga Jayo Prahalada Narsinga Jayo Prahalada Narsinga Jai Jagannath Jaya Baladev Jaya Subhadra Jaya Gauranitai गौरानिताय जय गौरानिताय। जय जय प्रभुपाद 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 जय जय प्रभुपाद। जय ओम विष्णुपाद परमहंस परिव्राजकाचार्य अष्टोत्तर श्री श्रीमद डिवाइन ग्रेस अभय चरणारविंद भक्ति वेदांत स्वामी श्रील प्रभुपाद जी की, अनंत कोटि वैष्णव वृंद की, नामाचार्य श्री हरिदास ठाकुर की, प्रेम से कहो श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्त वृंद की, ग्रंथराज श्रीमद् भागवतम की। All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Sri Guru and Gauranga. All glories to His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. नारायणं नमस्कृत्यं नरं चैव नरोत्तमं देवीं सरस्वतीं व्यासं ततो जयौदीरये। शृण्वन्ता स्वकथा कृष्णा पुण्यश्रवण कीर्तनम् हृदयन्तस्त भद्राणि विदुनोति सुहृत्सताम्। नष्टप्रायेषु भद्रेषु नित्यं भागवत सेवया भगवती उत्तम श्लोके भक्तिर्भवति नैष्ठिकी। ग्रंथराज श्रीमद् भागवतम की जय। Today we will be continuing into the theme of the appearance of Lord Nrsimhadev and the pastimes of Lord Nrsimhadev, and especially today's verse is a very wonderful verse, that one of the most magnificent prayers by Prahalada Maharaja. So I will read the verse, and I believe this verse is on the board also. Please repeat. Evam janam nipatam prabhavikupe kamabhikamam anuya praptan prasangat कृत्वामसात सुरसेन भगवान गृत्ता सोहम कथं नु विसृजे तव भृत्या सेवाम्। एवं जनं निपतं प्रवावहि कूपे कामाभिकामाननुयः प्राप्तं प्रसंगात् कृत्वात्मसात् सुरसेन भगवान् गृत्तः सोहं कथं नु विसृजे तव भृत्य सेवा। एवं जनं निपतं निपितां प्रभावाहि कूपे कामाभिकामामनुयः प्राप्तं प्रसंगात् कीट्वात्मसात् सुरासिनो भगवान् घृतः सोहं कथं नु विसृजे तव भृत्य सेवाम्. Anybody? एवं जनं निपतितं प्रभाविकूपे कामाभिकामामनुयः प्रपतान् प्रसंगात्. कृत्वात्मसात् सुरासीन भगवान् गृहीता सोहं कथं नु विसृजे तव भृत्य सेवाम्. एवं जनं निपतं प्रभाविकूपे कामाभिकामादनुया प्रसंगात्. माताजी's एवं जनं निपतितं प्रभाविकूपे कामाभिकामामनुया प्रपतन् प्रसंगात्. कृत्वानुशांस सुरसेन भगवान् घृतेः सोहं कथं नु विसृजे तव भृत्य सेवाम्. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada, word to word meaning first. Evam, thus, Janam, people in general, Nipatitam, fallen, Prabhava, of material existence, Ahikupe, in a blind well full of snakes, Kama Abhikamam, desiring the sense objects, Anu, following, Yaha, the person who, Praptan, falling down in this condition, Prasangat, because of bad association or increased association with material desires. Kritva Atmasat, causing me to acquire spiritual qualities like himself, Sri Narada. Sura Rishina, by the great saintly person, Narad. Bhagavan, O my Lord, Grihitaha, accepted. Saha, that person. Aham, I. Katham, how. Nu, indeed. Visrije, can give up. Tava, your. Bhritya Sevam, the service of your pure devotee. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, Srila Prabhupada Ji Ki Jai. My dear Lord, O Supreme Personality of Godhead, because of my association with material desires, one after another, I was gradually falling into a blind well full of snakes, following the general populace. but your servant Narad Muni kindly accepted me as his disciple and instructed me how to achieve the transcendental position. Therefore, my first duty is to serve him. How could I leave his service? As will be seen in the later verses, even though Prahalada Maharaj was directly offered all the benedictions he might have desired, he refused to accept such offerings from the Supreme Personality of Godhead. On the contrary, he asked the Lord to engage himself in the service of his servant Narad Muni. This is the symptom of a pure devotee. One should serve the spiritual master first. It is not that one should bypass the spiritual master and desire to serve the Supreme Lord. This is not the principle of a Vaishnava. Narottam Das Thakur says, Tandira charana sevi bhakta sane vas, janama janama hoy ei abhilash. One should not be anxious to offer direct service to the Lord. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu advised that one become a servant of the servant of the servant of the Lord, Gopi Bhartuhu, Pada Kamalayor, Dasa Anudasaha. This is the process for approaching the Supreme Lord. The first service should be rendered to the spiritual master. So, by his mercy, one can approach the Supreme Personality of Godhead to render service. While teaching Rupa Goswami, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, Guru Krishna Prasade Pai Bhakti Lata Bij. One can achieve the seed of devotional service by the mercy of the Guru, the spiritual master, and then by the mercy of Krishna. This is the secret of success. First, one should try to please the spiritual master, and then one should attempt to please the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Sri Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur also says, Yasya prasadat bhagavat prasada. One should not attempt to please the Supreme Personality of Godhead by concoction. One must first be prepared to serve the spiritual master, and one is qualified, is automatically offered the platform of direct service to the Lord. Therefore, Prahalada Maharaj proposed that he engage in the service of Narad Muni. He never proposed that he engage directly in the service of the Lord. This is the right conclusion. Therefore, he said, So aham katham nu visraje tava bhritya sevam. How can I give up the service of my spiritual master, who has favored me in such a way that I am now able to see you face to face? Prahalada Maharaj prayed to the Lord that he might continue to engage in the service of his spiritual master Naradji. Om Ajnana Timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurve Namaha Vancha Kalpatarobhyascha Kripa Sindhubhyevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Ajanulambito bhujo kanakaya vidhato Sankirtanai pitaro kamalaya taksho Vishwambaro dijavaro yugadharma palo Vande jagat priyakaro karuna avtaro Navanirad nindita kanti dharam Rasasagar nagar bhupavaram Shubhavanki macharu shikhanda sikhim Bhaja Krishna nidhim vraja raja sutam Radhika sarodaindu nindimukha mandali Vandiye Shripad Padma Vrishabhanu Nandini Shri Narsingha Jai Narsingha Jai Narsingha Praladesha Jaya Mukha Padma Bringa. Shri Prabhupada ki Jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnava Brahma Madhva Gaudiya Sampradaya Acharya Guru Varg ki Jai. So out of the many wonderful prayers of Prahalada Maharaj, this is an exemplary one. And in this particular chapter, chapter 9, after Hiranyakashipu was killed by Nrsingadev, Nrsingadev was extremely angry. There was no other avatar of the Lord or the Lord himself who expressed such anger. And that particular form is known as Ugra Narsingha. And rightfully so, because of the atrocities that were committed by Hiranyakashipu on just a 5-year-old boy, not only his own child, but also a pure devotee of the Lord. And Krishna guarantees this in the Bhagavad Gita, actually through Arjun. Krishna says that, dear Arjun, please declare that my devotee will never perish. Why is it that he asked Arjun instead of saying it directly? Because sometimes it is found that Krishna may change his words depending on time, place, and circumstance. He is known to be tricky. But when his own devotee declares something, then he must follow. That's why he said, "Oh Arjun, you declare, Name Bhaktya Pranashyati. Pratijanati Kaunteya, Name Bhaktya Pranashyati." So we find that time and again, when pure devotees make a declaration, no matter what, Krishna must listen to them. Thakur Bhakti Vinod says in one of his bhajans that Sharanga Sharanagati Hoibe Jar Tar Prarthna Shune Brajendra Kumar. When a pure devotee who is fully surrendered, Krishna, Brajendra Kumar, must listen to his prayers. Sometimes we wonder when we are praying to Krishna, why is it that our prayers are not fulfilled? Even though, we've been practicing Krishna consciousness for many years. So the answer lies in this particular line of Bhaktivinoda Thakur, Shadanga Sharanagati Hoibe Jar. If we are fully surrendered, with all the 6 symptoms of full surrender, Dainya Atma Nivedana Guptite Varana Avasya Rakshibi Krishna Vishwasha Palana Bhakti Anukul Karya Kare Jo Svikar Bhakti Pratikula Bhav Varjanangikar. Humility, number 1. Bhakti Dainya Atma Nivedan, surrendering everything. My mind, body, assets, manasa deha geha jo kichu more, arpilu tu apade, Nanda Kishore. Goptirtharan, Krishna, you are indeed my provider. Not only for food, shelter, etc., but even you are the provider through your kripa, through your mercy. My bhakti is nourished. Avasya Rakshive Krishna Vishwashapalan. Krishna will certainly protect me. I have full faith, just like we see here in this chapter and the previous chapter in the pastimes of Lord Nrsingadev and Prahalada Maharaj. When everything failed, Hiranyakashipu said, "Now I'm personally going to kill you. Who's going to save you? Is your Sri Hari going to come here? Is he present here?" He says, "Yes, my Sri Hari is here. I have full faith. He will protect me." And certainly, Sri Hari appeared in the pillar in the form of Lord Nrsingadev, half man, half lion. Tavakara Kamala Vare Nakham, Adbhuta Shringam, Dalita Hiranyakashipu Tanu Bhringam, Keshavadhrita Narhari Rupa, Jai Jagadish Hare. When Hiranyakashipu was killed, by Nrsimhadev, the anger was so immense that it was impossible for anyone to calm him down. Lakshmi Devi herself was asked by the demigods, please, you are his wife. Please go ahead and calm down your husband. And she had never seen such wrath or anger. She said, it's impossible for me. And she herself was very afraid to go forward. Eventually, Lord Brahma asked Prahalada Maharaj to go forward. And in this chapter we find that Prahalada Maharaj was not afraid. He says that I am not afraid of your ferocious form with your nails, chisel-like nails and stone-like chest and your perked up ears and your roaring that can send elephants crying far away, elephants running just by your tumultuous roaring. That's what a devotee sees out of devotion. Tava kara kamala vare nakam adbhuta shringam. Adbhut shringam. Devotee is not afraid, but he sees that form of Nrsimhadev as adbhut, amazing, most fascinating. When Prahalad went forward, he offered his obeisances and he offered a garland to Lord Nrsimhadev. We see that famous picture where Lord Prahalada Maharaj is offering a garland to Nrsimhadev. That is when he went to pacify Lord Nrsimhadev. And immediately Nrsimhadev was pacified. He became very calm. And he caressed Prahalada Maharaj's head. And no sooner than he had done that, immediately Prahalada Maharaj was imbibed with the Brahma Gyan, spiritual knowledge. And he started offering wonderful prayers. Prahalada Maharaj was seated on the lap of Nrsimhadev, and Nrsimhadev kissed his forehead, he smelt his head, and a lot of parental affection emanated in Nrsimhadev. It is said that after that particular pastime, the Lord himself desired to have parents. Actually, prior to Nrsimhadev and prior to him, all the avatars, they never had any parents. And from that time onwards, a greed evolved even in the Lord. Greed is a good thing if it is spiritual in nature. Devotees are encouraged to be greedy. Rupa Goswami in Padyavali says, what is the price for pure bhakti? Everything has a price. Everybody wants to know what's the price of a ticket to India, or what's the price of this item or that item. How much? What's the price of pure bhakti? So Rupa Goswami mentions the price of pure bhakti is ekam lolyam api mulyam. Only pure greed is the mulyam. Mulyam means the cost or the price. It's very important. We sing that every day in the Mangal Arati. What is that verse? Verse number 5. Shri Radhika Madhav Madhurya Leela Guna Rupa Nam Pratishana Swadana Lolupasya. The word is Lolupasya. Vande Guru Ho Shri Charanarvindam. Out of great greed, the Acharya is describing the name, form, qualities, pastimes of Radha and Krishna, and with a lot of greed. So that greed also arises in the heart of the Lord, that I would also like to experience that Vatsalya Rasa. I would like to have parents. And from then onward, the Lord, when he appeared, he because that to fulfill that desire that Lord Nrsingadev had, he had parents. And we find that the ecstasy, the highest ecstasy of Vatsalya Rasa or parenthood is in Krishna Leela, in Yashoda Mai, Nanda Baba, the seniors of Vrajvasis, of Vraj, etc. So we find Prahalada Maharaj, he mentions, as here in this verse, my dear Lord, O Supreme Personality of Godhead, because of my association with material desires, one after another, I was gradually falling in a blind well full of snakes. Pure devotees always, they are, especially Mahabhagavats, there are basically three categories of Vaishnavas: Kanishta Vaishnava, Madhyam Vaishnava, and Uttam Vaishnava. And even within them, there are three further delineations: Kanishta, Kanishta, Kanishta Madhyam, Kanishta Uttam, Madhyam Kanishta, Madhyam, Madhyam, Madhyam Uttam, Uttam Kanishta, Uttam Madhyam, Uttam Uttam. So, it is described in the Chaitanya Charitamrita very briefly what are the differences between these three categories of Vaishnavas. So Kanishta Vaishnava, excuse me, is one who has faith in Krishna, but he thinks he is the best devotee and the only devotee. He generally doesn't have that much respect for others. That's a Kanishta. A Madhyam Adhikari or a Madhyam Vaishnava is, he has faith in Krishna and he respects all the Vaishnavas. And in particular, he also avoids the association of, he avoids bad association. And the third category is the Uttam Adhikari Vaishnava, which Prahalada Maharaja is. And so many other Uttam Adhikaris, they think they have faith in Krishna, no doubt, but they think everybody else is a devotee, everybody else deserves respect. I do not deserve any respect, and I am not a devotee. And therefore, it is said that the Uttam Adhikari Vaishnava generally comes down to the Madhyama Adhikari platform to preach, because if they remain on the Uttama Adhikari platform, they will not be able to preach, because they are in that consciousness that I am the worst person in this world. Who am I to give instruction to others? So, Srila Prabhupada, Uttama Adhikari, but he had to come down to the Madhyam Uttam platform for preaching purposes. So we find that Prahalada Maharaj is expressing his utmost humility, and this is actually is for us, that because of association with persons, etc., and association of material desires, I'm continuously falling into a dark well full of serpents. So that is the case for all of us, especially if we examine our lives. As long as we associate with devotees, we are protected. The moment we are bereft of any Vaishnava association, we are actually in a blind well, in a dark well full of venomous snakes. Because all that association inspires us is how to materially enjoy, to stay on the bodily concept. And such association is very dangerous. We use the word satsang, right? What does satsang mean? Sorry? Truth seekers, okay, that's one meaning. I would rather say that would be a secondary meaning. Sat means eternal. The meaning of Sat means eternal. There's more than one primary meaning also of Sat. Like Vyasadeva says, Satyam Param Dhimahi. In the very first verse of Srimad Bhagavatam, last line. So that Sat is Sri Krishna. That Sat is Radha Krishna. That Sat is Radha Krishna and their associates. That Sat is Radha Krishna, their associates and their eternal abode. That Sat is Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. That Sat is Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and his associates. That Sat is the holy name. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So those, Sangha means association. Those that can give us eternity, Sata, which is Krishna. That is known as Satsang. And all those otherwise out there, they are Kusanga, the opposite of Satsanga. As Prahalada Maharaja says, that the association with material desires one after another, I was gradually falling into a blind well full of snakes, following the general populace. And that is the thing. The general people at large have no idea about spiritual life. Most of us have some spiritual upbringing. But if we ask our parents or any of the people in our family, ask them the meaning of God or what is the purpose of life, where do we come from, where will we go, which is known as Athato Brahma Jigyasa. The second acronym of the Vedanta Sutra is inquiring about spiritual life, Brahma Jigyasa. How many of us have really got a satisfactory answer? If we really examine our past life, until we came across this wonderful movement, the International Society of Krishna Consciousness, a transcendental gift by His Divine Grace Srila Prabhupada, where our questions, our queries, our thirst, our spiritual hankering is nourished. Is it true or not? Other than prior to that, everything was vague. So therefore, Prahalada Maharaja says that due to the association of this general public, I've been sliding deeper and deeper into a dark well full of snakes. And most of us, we don't even know that we are sliding into a dark well. As they say, ignorance is bliss. People who are ignorant, they think they are very, very happy and this is the way of life. And therefore, Prahalada Maharaja says, but your servant Narad, by the mercy of Naradji, your servant, your devotee, he kindly accepted me as his disciple and instructed me how to achieve this transcendental position. When Prahalad's mother Kayadu was pregnant, the demigods had a meeting, and especially Indra was extremely afraid. The wife of Hiranyakashipu is pregnant. Hiranyakashipu is such a terrible, terrible, terrible demon. Can you imagine what his son will be like? His child, the unborn. I think we should finish this pregnancy and kill the unborn child. Indra went down and actually kidnapped Prahalad's mother Kayadu. And while en route to the heavenly planets, Naradji appeared. Naradji is just an amazing personality. Whenever there is the need of the hour, he just appears like that. So many cases. He's one of those great devotees where there is no restriction. He can right away, without any permission, enter into the inner chambers of Krishna or Narayan or Vishnu. And he is welcome. We are in that parampara. Brahma Madhva Gaudiya Sampradaya. Who is our first spiritual master? Lord Brahma. Then this spiritual knowledge was passed on in disciplic succession to Naradji. From Naradji it came to Vyasadeva. Naradji is just not an ordinary spiritual master. He is the spiritual master of Vedvyas, the compiler of all the Vedas. He is the spiritual master of Dhruva Maharaj. He initiated him by giving him the mantra, the 12 letter. Does anybody know which one it is? Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. He is the spiritual master of Valmiki, a very notorious dacoit known as Ratnakar. And he initiated him into the name Ram, which he couldn't even pronounce correctly. He used to chant Mara, 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 Mara. But because it was given to him by a powerful spiritual master, and because he had faith, he became a pure devotee, although he mispronounced. And here we find he is the spiritual master of Prahalada Maharaj. Prahalada Maharaj declares that himself. So when Naradji stopped Indradev, what are you doing? It doesn't befit you. You are the king of heaven. How can you kidnap a woman, and that too a woman who is pregnant? This is not befitting. Please, let her go. And right away, he honored Naradji's request. Everybody, generally speaking, they cannot deny Naradji. Not even Kamsa. When Naradji appeared in front of Kamsa and said, Kamsa, what are you doing? You let your firstborn go? Because Vasudeva came with the firstborn as promised. At that time, Vasudeva and Devaki were not yet imprisoned. Because Vasudeva had promised, he told Kamsa that, look, the problem is the 8th child, as per the declaration in the firmament. So, I promise you that I will turn my 8th child in. As a matter of fact, I promise you every time the child is born, I will turn it in. So Kamsa knew that Vasudeva was a man of his word. He could trust him completely. That was his impeccable quality. So he said, okay, fine. He let him go. Firstborn appeared, and as per his word, he came to Kamsa's palace. And he offered the child. And Kamsa at that time was very much moved with emotion that, wow, you really kept your promise. But he said that, no, you take him back. It's the 8th child that I'm concerned with. And Vasudeva took him back. He was still a little bit skeptical because he knew his brother-in-law was a demon, and demons can change their mind any second. So when he sent the child back with Kamsa, Naradji appeared. He says, hey, Kamsa. And immediately Kamsa offered his own throne. That's the quality of a pure devotee. Dhira dhira jano priya karo nirmat saro pujito vande rupa sanatana raghujugo Sri Jiva Gopalako. In the Shada Goswami Astakam, the 6 Goswamis, Dhira adhira. Dhira means the ones that are most sober. And adhira means those that are scoundrels. Dhira adhira jana priya. Personality like Naradji, the 6 Goswamis are very dear. Priya. Nirmat saro pujito. Because they are without any envy. Zero envy. If we examine ourselves, some of us have envy as big as a football and some as small as a mustard seed, but it is there. But pure devotees, they are nirmatsara. Even Srimad Bhagavatam, 2nd verse, nirmatsara. Dharma projita kaitavatra nirmatsaranam satam. Those devotees that are without any kind of envy. And therefore they are pujita. They are always full of, everybody offers them obeisances and respects them. So Naradji, you are here. Yes. What did you just do? Well, I sent back the firstborn. It's the 8th born. That was the predicament that will kill me. Oh, how could you do that? Do you trust the demigods? They are your enemies. And how do you know it could not be the first one? They say it's the 8th. And then, in one version that we had heard, Naradji took one circular object like a saucer and he drew 8 dots and he turned it. He says, now you tell me which one is 8 and which one is number 1. So that kind of infuriated consensus, I'll arrest him right away. Of course, the rest is history, we know. But why did Naradji do that? Because he had a very good purpose behind it. The first 6 that were killed were they basically representation of Kam, Krodh, Lobh, Mahad, Matsarya. The representative of the lust, envy, anger, or the 6 different anarthas. And before the womb of Devaki needed to be cleansed, and that's why Guru comes, spiritual master, which is Lord Baldev. And then it is ready for the Supreme Lord. But also, not only that, he wanted to advance the appearance of Krishna. Because devotees cannot wait. Just like we find that yesterday we were there for Nrsimhadev's darshan. Everybody was waiting till the curtains open. Like, oh, when is it going to open? When is it going to open? When is it going to open? Sometimes, especially on festival days, it's not exactly on time. Sometimes it takes a little longer because there's so many services in the background. So we all have that desire. When will he appear? When will I get darshan? So to expedite that. Anyways, so Prahalada Maharaj said this, that Naradji accepted me as his disciple because Kayadu did not want to go back. He says, my husband will kill me if I go back. Especially when he comes to know that I was kidnapped, touched by another man. So then Naradji, showing compassion, takes her to his ashram. And that's when he is speaking Srimad Bhagavatam and so many wonderful spiritual subject matters. And while the child, unborn child Prahlad in her womb was listening to that from a pure devotee. That's so important. When we hear from a pure devotee, it has an everlasting effect. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu says, Bhagavat Shuno Bhagavat Sthane. One should hear Srimad Bhagavatam, one should hear the scripture from Bhagavat, a person Bhagavat, who has actually realized Bhagavat. And that is how fortunate we are. that we have Srila Prabhupada's books with us, which is his eternal Vani. Even though we may be imperfect, I am imperfect, sitting on this Vyasasana, I've got many bad qualities. But if I am speaking as it is from Srila Prabhupada's books, then the message is pure, without any alteration, without any digression. So that is important. It is he who is speaking. It is he who is giving us this transcendental instructions. So that's how Prahalad was initiated in his mother's womb by the instructions of Sri Naradji. So he says, therefore, my first duty is to serve him. How could I leave his service? What an amazing, amazing consciousness. Prabhupada mentions that further in the prayers Narasimhadev offers, in this interaction between Narasimhadev and Prahalada Maharaj, offers him so many benedictions. He says, Prahalada, I'm very pleased with you. Ask me for a benediction. He says, what is there to ask, my dear Lord? My father, Hiranyakashipu, Hiranya means gold, Kashipu means all comforts. He had all the wealth and all the comforts in this material world. But you killed him in a moment. Tavakara kamala vare nakham adbhuta shringam. Dalita Hiranyakashipu tanu bringam. Like a little wasp, you killed him. Bringa you can compare also to a little fruit fly. Sometimes you have ripened fruits like a banana or let's say a mango, and there are some fruit flies on it, and you try to remove them. They're so soft that when you touch them, they are killed. So similarly, Hiranyakashipu was killed by Narasimhadev. And he had everything, all the material comforts. When he raised his eyebrows, all the demigods in the heavenly planets started shivering and shaking. Now what? What's next? So he had all the power, he had all the comforts, he had all the wealth, and he was finished like a wasp. What's there to ask in this material world, my dear Lord? But Prahalad, ask me something. Well, if you do want to give me something, then please, my father, such a demon, please deliver him. That's a Vaishnava. His arch enemy, Hiranyakashipu, is asking for blessings for him. That is a true Vaishnava. If we just examine our lives, how many of us can do that? Supposing if somebody just mistreats us, even though it's in the Vaishnava community, we hold some grudges. We won't talk to that person, or we will cross paths, we will want to go the other way, etc., etc. It has happened. How many of us really prayed, really genuinely, that somebody was trying to hurt us for their benefit? So Narasimhadev Bhagavan says that 21 generations in the past and yet to come, they will all be delivered just because of you, Prahalad. That is the benefit of becoming a devotee. Sometimes this question arises that, I've joined the temple, I'm into this ISKCON movement now, but my parents don't like it. I don't get support from my own family members. I'm trying to preach to them, but they won't listen, etc., etc. So what do you do in that case? You try your best. Leave the results to Krishna. But if we become good devotees, and due to us having affection for a friend or a family member, or whosoever it may be, without asking, Krishna will deliver them. That is the best solution. Become a good devotee. Manmana mad bhakto madhyaji mam namaskuru. Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita. Manmana mad bhakto, become my devotee in the heart of hearts. So, he says, ask me. So then finally he says, which is mentioned in these prayers, that if you want to give me something, then please, Narsigadev Bhagavan, we'll find in the future prayers that was ready with the Viman, the Pushpak Viman, the transcendental plane to take Prahlad to Vaikuntha. But he refused. He said, therefore my first duty is to serve him. Narad Muni kindly accepted me as his disciple and instructed me how to achieve this transcendental position. Therefore my first duty is to serve him. That is what Prabhupada is mentioning in the purports by quoting our acharyas. Narottam Das Thakur says in the famous bhajan, Hari Harai Nama Krishna Yadavaya Nama, Yadavaya Madhavaya Keshavaya Nama. In that he says, Tandere Charana Sevi Bhakta Janevas Janama Janame Hoy Ei Abhilash. Birth after birth, I prefer the lotus feet of the Vaishnavas. That is my deep desire, not going home back to Godhead. That is a higher prayer. Narottam Das Thakur in one prayer, Ei bar karuna karo Vaishnav Gosai, Patita Pavana Tama Vina Keho Nai. At the end of that prayer, he says that Prati Janme Kori Asha Charane Radhuli, Narottame Koro Daya Apnar Boli. Prati Janme Kori Asha. Birth after birth, I desire Charane Radhuli, the dust of the lotus feet of the Vaishnavas. Narottame Korodaya Apnarabuli. Please have mercy on me. I request you. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu says, becoming a servant of the servant of the servant of the servant of Krishna, Gopi Bhartu Padakamalayo Dasano, Dasanu Dasanu Das, is the objective. One cannot worship Krishna directly. One has to go through a servant, through the spiritual master. Mahaprabhu also in the Rup Goswami's instructions to Rup Goswami, he mentions, Guru Prasad Pai Bhakti Lata Bij, Ei Rupe Brahman Brahmite Kono Bhagyavan Jeev. Guru Krishna Prasad Pai Bhakti Lata Bij. In this fashion, the jiva or the soul is simply oscillating in this material world, sometimes in the earthly planets, sometimes in the hellish planets, sometimes in the heavenly planets, simply oscillating up, down, up, down, up, down. But that jiva or that soul is fortunate if he can find the mercy of Guru. And by the mercy of Guru, one can get the mercy of Krishna. Sri Prabhupada quotes in this purport the last verse of Gurvashtakam by Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur. We sing that every day. Yasya prasadat bhagavad prasado, yasya aprasadan na gati kutoti. Dayans tuams yashastri sandhyam. Vande Guru Sri Charanarvindam. Yasya prasadat, O Acharya, O Gurudev, Bhagavad Prasado, your mercy is as good as Krishna's mercy. But if I do not get your mercy, yasya aprasadan, na gati kutopi, I cannot advance. These are the instructions, and therefore, to conclude, generally speaking, we all desire to go home back to Godhead. It's a good desire. Most of us have that aspiration. But if we look at the prayers here, examine, then our aspirations will take to a newer height. Is going back to Godhead is not that important. Serving His Divine Grace Srila Prabhupada, no matter where we are, and His sincere devotees, is the highest prayer. He has saved us, His divine grace, Srila Prabhupada, through His, either to some directly or to some through His sincere devotees. Then how can we leave their association? We should assist them. It's okay if Krishna desires that we come home back to Godhead, then that's a different story. But our aspiration should be exactly what Prahalada Maharaja is saying, that your servant Narad Muni kindly accepted me as a disciple and instructed me how to achieve this transcendental position. Therefore, my first duty is to serve him. How could I leave his service? So that is our earnest prayers. How could we leave the service of His divine grace? For a Vaishnava, Swargeshu, Narkeshu, Apavargeshu, Samatulya Darshana. Whether one Vaishnava is situated in Swarga, the heavenly planets, Narka, hellish planets, Apavarga, even Vaikuntha, Samatulya Darshana. A Vaishnava looks upon it equally. Because no matter where they go, they want to serve Krishna. They want to serve the Vaishnavas, no matter where they are. So their life is always successful. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna. Is there any questions or any comments? Yes. Prabhu, can you give her the microphone? Turn it on. Maybe it is off. Press the button. Hare Krishna. That's a good question. I have no idea. Yeah. Whether he realized. I would say eventually he would have, because Paramatma is in his heart. And once he got liberated, somehow or the other, I'm sure Nrsimhadev Bhagwan must have conveyed that it is, look, your wonderful Vaishnava son who was praying for you, for your well-being. So a part of me tells me yes. Hare Krishna. Anybody else?
No, also Prabhu, when any demon is killed by the Lord, if any demon is killed by the Lord, the demon is blessed actually. In fact, he goes to.
Yes, he gets liberated. Yes, any demon, any demon, all demons that were killed by the Lord, they get liberation. But the liberation is not necessarily like that of a Vaishnava. They mostly get Sahajya Mukti. Sahajya Mukti means Brahma liberation. They get liberation in the Brahma Jyoti, which is not desired by the Vaishnavas. It is considered, for Vaishnavas, it is considered hellish, Narkiya. Because there is no service. There is no form. Who will they serve? Supposing everybody is formless, then how will you serve each other? Right? You cannot. That is Mayavadi philosophy. But somehow or the other, they do get that benefit of going beyond the three modes of material nature. But certain demons, like Putna, she got liberation as a dhatri, as a nurse in Golok Vrindavan. Yeah. And even Kansa, he got liberation in Vaikuntha. He did. Because he was his mother's brother. So Krishna, it is said, the Acharya's comment, that he did that favor. But generally speaking, other demons, they get Sahajya Mukti. Yes. Anybody else? So thank you all very much. Thank you, Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Gaur Premanande. Kripamay Prabhu, thank you. I seek the blessings of all Prabhupada disciples, so kindly blessing me and inspiring me. Hare Krishna. श्री प्रभुपाद गुरुदेव की जय।